Hey everyone, my name is Anne and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to crochet this patchwork Harry Styles inspired sweater. I'll be making a small here, but sizes X small to 3X large are included in this tutorial and also in the written pattern that I have linked down below. But here are all of the supplies you're going to be needing for this project. So now we're going to be moving on to working our pattern. The first thing we're going to do is work on our first square, which is going to be our white square with this stitch pattern. All three of our squares have different stitch patterns, but we're going to be working on that a little bit later. So we're going to be needing 10 of these white squares in total. And to get started on this pattern, the first thing I'm going to do is make a slip knot. And then after the slip knot, we're going to begin this pattern with a chain of 24. To make a chain, all you want to do is just yarn over, pull through, again just yarn over and pull through, and then keep on doing this until you have a total of 24 chains. So once you have finished up working your chain of 24, beginning on row 1, we're going to skip this first chain and inserting a hook into the second chain, we will work a slip stitch. To work a slip stitch, you just want to insert your hook and then yarn over, pull through both of those loops. That is our very first slip stitch. Doing this again, you just want to insert your hook and then pull through both of those loops. One more time, just insert your hook, pull through both of these loops. Now just keep on working these slip stitches into each chain all the way across your row until the end. When you've reached the very end of these slip stitches, you just want to chain one and turn your work around. This chain one does not count as a stitch for the rest of the pattern. Now moving on to row 2, we're going to skip this first turning chain and insert our hook into this first stitch. We will work front loop or front bar slip stitches. So this is very similar to what we did for the first row. So instead of inserting our hook into both of these loops as you normally would, we're only going to insert our hook into this first loop, into that very front loop, and then just pull through 2 loops. Doing this once again, you just want to insert your hook only into this first loop, pull through both, only into this front loop, pull through both loops, just like this. And then just keep on working these front bar or front loop slip stitches all the way across your row. Once you have reached the end of these front loop slip stitches, just chain one and turn your work. So to continue this pattern for our first square, all you want to do is just repeat that second row with those front loop slip stitches, and you want to keep on repeating row 2 until you have a total of 27 rows in total, just like I do. Then you can go ahead and cut and fasten off with your work. Once you have finished one square, you then want to keep on repeating these squares until you have 10 in total, which I have already done. And then now that we are all done with our white square, we're now going to be moving on to working our next square, which is going to be this pink square with a little bit different stitch, but it is fairly simple. So let's go ahead and move on with those steps. So now moving on with our pink square, this is what it's going to be looking like. We need a total of 8 of these squares. And so to begin this pattern, I'm first going to start off with a slip knot as usual. And then now we're going to begin with a chain of 24. Once you have finished this chain of 24, beginning on row 1, we're going to skip this very first chain and insert our hook into the second chain. We will do slip stitches into each chain all the way across. Once again, to work a slip stitch, I'm just going to insert my hook, pull through both loops, insert my hook into the next chain, pull through both loops, and then just keep on working this into each chain all the way across your row, and then just chain 1 and turn. When you reach the end of row 1, we're just going to chain 1 and turn our work. Moving on to row 2, we were going to skip this first turning chain and insert our hook into this first stitch. We are going to work back bar or back loop slip stitches. So once again, instead of inserting our hook into both of those stitches, we are only going to insert our hook into this back bar. So I'm just going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull through both of those loops. Again, just looking for this back bar, pull through both of those loops, only into this back bar, pull through, and then just keep on working these back bar slip stitches into each stitch all the way across your row, and then just chain 1 and turn. So I just finished up row 2 with these back bar or back loop slip stitches. I'm just going to chain 1 and turn my work. Now moving on to our last repeat row, which is row 3. We are once again going to skip this first turning chain and insert our hook into this first stitch. We're going to be working front bar or front loop slip stitches. So same thing, I'm going to insert my hook into this front loop or front bar, and then just pull through, front loop, pull through, and then just keep on working these front loop slip stitches, which are the same slip stitches that we worked for this white square. Keep on doing this all the way down your row. And when you reach the end, you can just go ahead, chain 1 and turn your work. Now to continue this pattern for our pink square, what you want to do here is that you want to repeat those last 2 rows, which is row 2 and row 3. That is with our back bar slip stitches, and then row 3 is with our front bar slip stitches. You want to do that until you have a total of 25 rows, as I already done over here. Then you can of course cut and fasten off once you reach those 25 rows. And then as I mentioned previously, you have to make a total of 8 of these pink squares, which I have already done. And now that we have our pink and our white squares all done, we're now going to be moving on to our last color, which is going to be this purple square. So let's go ahead and move on with those steps. So now moving on with our purple squares, we are going to need a total of 10 of these. The first thing I'm going to do is make a slip knot, and then we're going to once again start off with a chain of 24. Once you have finished up working your chain of 24, beginning on row 1, we are going to skip this first chain and insert our hook into the second chain. We will do a half double crochet slip stitch, To work a half double crochet slip stitch, you just want to yarn over and then just insert your hook into that second chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through those last 2 loops, just like this. Doing this again, you just want to yarn over, insert your hook into that next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then just continue to pull through those last 2 loops, yarn over, insert your hook into that next chain, pull up a loop, and then continue to pull through those last 2 loops. Then now just work these half double crochet slip stitches into each of these chains all the way across, and I'm going to see you guys back once I reach the end. So once you have finished up working these half double crochet slip stitches into each chain, I'm just going to chain 1 and turn my work. So now moving on to row 2, skipping this first chain and inserting our hook into this first stitch, we will work back bar half double crochet slip stitches. To do that, I'm just going to yarn over. Instead of inserting my hook into both of those stitches, I'm only going to insert my hook into this back bar or back loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then continue to pull through those last 2 loops. Doing this again, yarn over, insert your hook into that back loop, pull through 2, yarn over, insert your hook, pull through 2, and now just keep on working these half double crochet, well, these back bar half double crochet slip stitches. Then I'm going to see you guys back once I reach the end. When you have finished up working this row 2, we're just going to chain 1 and turn our work. So to continue this pattern, you just want to repeat that row 2 with our back bar half double crochet slip stitches until you have a total of 10 rows. This is what your square should be looking like once you have completed 10 of your rows. Once we have our main squares, the last thing we would need to do is just make our half squares or rectangles. So to make our rectangles, you're going to need 4 of these pink ones, then you're just going to need 2 of these purple ones. So to make these half squares, the only difference is that instead of beginning with a chain of 24, you're going to instead begin with a chain of 12, and then you're going to have a total of 11 stitches for both of these squares. And then you just want to work your regular stitch pattern until you have 10 rows in total, cut and fasten off. Same thing over here, you just want to work these slip stitches until you have a total of 25 stitches in total. Then just complete 4 of these and 2 of these. And then once you have all of these squares all done, we're now just going to move on to the assembly. So now we're going to be moving on to working the assembly. Over here I have already attached my first front panel. This is what it is going to look like. And for all of these pieces, I'm going to probably put like a screenshot on the screen so that it's easier to follow along and you can just pause the video if you need. But this is our first front panel. And then over here I have our second front panel. Let's see. Yeah, here's our second front panel. And this is with the wrong side facing us. And so I just left this one piece unseamed because I'm going to show you guys how to seam all of our work together, just a little sample of this. So to seam all of our squares together, the first thing I'm going to do is grab our tapestry needle, and I'm going to be using the white yarn to seam. And the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to insert my hook into the back bar or the back loop of the first stitch, and then into the back bar or back loop of the second stitch and just pull through. Doing this again, I'm going to come back around, insert my hook into these 2 back loops or back bars, and then just pull through. To these 2 back bars, pull through, and then just keep on working this all the way down your work until the end. And so I just finished whip stitching all the way down into the end of my work. And then you just want to do this to attach all of your squares, so coming all the way down, and then just whip stitch until you have your first front panel. Then you want to do that for both front panels that I have already inserted onto the screen. And then now the next thing you want to whip stitch together would be the back panel, which I have already done over here. So you just want to place all of your squares in order, and then just whip stitch up here, up, down here, and then across and across to whip stitch everything together to make one cohesive panel, just like this. Then the last two things you would have to do are the sleeves. So this is the first sleeve that I have already done over here. It looks like this. And then here's the second sleeve, just like this. And again, this is with the wrong side facing me, so this would be, if I flipped it over, this is what the good side is going to look like. So once you have everything all seamed up, we're now going to begin on seaming the bodice together. So here is the front panel, and on top of the front panel I'm going to lay my, well, on top of the back panel, I'm sorry, I'm going to lay my front panels just like this. And then here's my other one, just like this, and the good sides are facing each other. I'm just going to line everything up, and I'm going to deal with all of these loose ends later. And so what we're going to do here is that we're going to turn our bodice to the side, and beginning into this very bottom corner, we are going to whip stitch all the way up the side until you have 6.5 inches from the top remaining. That 6.5 inches from the top is going to leave room for our sleeves. So if I just grab my ruler, I'm just going to go 6.5 inches from the top, and then doing that on the other side as well. Beginning into the very bottom corner, I'm going to whip stitch all the way up here until I have 6.5 inches from the top. And so I'm just going to go ahead, whip stitch my bodice together, and then we're going to move on to whip stitching the sleeves to our bodice. So I'm going to work that up, and then I'll see you guys back in a little bit. Okay guys, so I have just made it back here with my two front panels attached to my back panel. What I did is that I whip stitched all the way up the side until I had these 6.5 inches from the top. That's going to be for our armhole. I did the same on the other side as well. I went all the way up the side until I had 6.5 inches from the top. I forgot to show this in the previous clip, but what I went ahead and did is that I whip stitched together two shoulder straps. So what I did is that beginning into this very top corner, I whip stitched all the way across for just this one square. So this should be left like this. Then I did that on the opposite side as well. I whip stitched all the way across just for this one square. So this is what it should look like. This is what our two shoulder straps look like. So now that we have both of our sides and our two shoulder straps, we're now going to whip stitch together our two sleeves. So over here I have my first sleeve, and what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to turn this on itself, making sure that the two good sides are facing each other. I'm just going to fold this a half, and then I'm going to whip stitch all the way down this edge until the end of my work. And then once you have your sleeve, you're going to then attach it to the bodice. I'm just going to place it where the armhole is. And then I'm just going to whip stitch all the way around to connect the sleeve to the bodice. Then you of course want to do this with the other side as well. So just showing you one more time, I'm going to grab my second sleeve, and then I'm just going to make sure that the good sides are facing. Then you want to whip stitch all the way down this edge until the end of your work. And then you want to whip stitch all the way down the edge, and then just go ahead and attach your sleeve to the armhole, whip stitch all the way around to connect. So I'm just going to work up both of my sleeves, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done. Okay guys, so I have now made it back here with my sleeves. This is what my first sleeve looks like. I just seamed this together, making a large tube, and then I went all the way around to connect it to the armhole. And then I did that on both sides, so here's my other sleeve as well. Looking really good. And now that we have all of the main parts seamed together, so we have both of the sleeves and we have our front and back panels attached, we're now going to be moving on to working the borders. And the borders that we're going to be doing are the cuffs, the bottom border, the front border, and then the collar that goes all the way around. So that is going to be the next part of this video. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So these are all of the borders that we will be working for this pattern. We're going to be doing the collar in the next video, but for now, these are our two cuffs. These are our two front borders that go along the front panels. And then this is our very long bottom border. And so all of these borders are used working at the same stitch, which is a back bar or back loop double crochet. And to begin each of these borders, you want to begin with a chain of 7, and I'm doing this with a 4.5mm hook, so I changed out my 5.5 to a 4.5mm. I'm just going to make a chain of 7, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Once you have your chain of 7 beginning on row 1, into this third chain, so skipping these first 2 chains and inserting a hook into this third chain, we will work a double crochet. To work a double crochet, you just want to yarn over, insert your hook into that third chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3, and then yarn over, pull through 3. Doing this again, you just want to yarn over, insert your hook into that next chain, pull up a loop, pull through 3, pull through 3. Then just keep on working these double crochets into each of these chains. And I am almost at the end here. There we go. And then now once you reach the end, you just want to chain 2 and turn your work around. This chain 2 does count as a stitch for the rest of the pattern. So moving on to row 2, this is where we're going to work back bar double crochets. We're going to skip this first stitch and insert our hook into the second stitch. We will work a back bar or back loop double crochet. To do that, I'm just going to yarn over, insert my hook only into this back bar, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Again, just yarn over, insert your hook into that back loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. And then keep on working these back bar double crochets until one stitch at the end remains. So I just have 2 more stitches to work. This is 1, then here is 2. Now into this very last stitch, we will work 1 regular double crochet, so not a back bar, just 1 regular. Just like this. And then as always, you want to chain 2, which does count as a stitch. Turn your work around. And now this row 2 is going to be our repeat row for all of our borders. So what we're going to do here is that you want to repeat row 2 with those back bar or back loop double crochets. And you want to do that until you have 16 rows in total for your cuffs, or you can make these cuffs however long you would like. I chose to do 16 rows. Then you also want to do this for our bottom border, except this time you want to do the same thing, except you want to have a total of 69 rows that will go all the way around the bottom edge. And then lastly, you want to do the same thing as I mentioned before, except this time you want to have a total of 34 rows for your front panel. Once you have all of these borders all done with these back bar double crochets, you just want to place these aside, and then we're going to get started on working the collar, which is basically the same thing. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started on that. So now we're going to get started on working the collar, which as I mentioned is the same thing with these back bar double crochet stitches. So for this collar, we're going to begin with a chain of 16, and that's going to be one of the differences. So I'm going to make a slip knot with my 4.5mm hook, and then we're going to begin this with a chain of 16. Once you have finished up your chain of 16, beginning into this third chain, we will work double crochets into each chain all the way across for row 1. once you have reached the end of row 2, we are just going to chain 2 and turn our work. Once again, that does count as our first stitch. So now moving on to row 2, which will be our repeat row. Skipping this first stitch and insert our hook into the second stitch, we will work a back bar, our back loop double crochets into each stitch all the way across until you have 1 stitch at the end of your row remaining. When you have 1 stitch at the end of your row, you can just go ahead and make 1 regular double crochet and then just chain 2 and turn your work. So now to continue this pattern for our collar, you just want to repeat row 2 with these back bar double crochets until you have 30 rows in total. Once you have those 30 rows, you can of course cut and fasten off. And now that we have our collar and all of our borders that I showed you previously, we're now going to attach everything to our bodice, and then that is basically going to be the end of the tutorial. So I'm going to move on to the assembly process. So now we're going to be moving on to working the assembly process, but to whip stitch everything together, the first thing that we're going to do is whip stitch our collar together. All you want to do is just place your collar around the edge of the head hole, so all the way around like this, and then you just want to whip stitch everything all the way across until you reach the end, and then just cut and fasten off. Then you just want to grab your 2 front panels or your 2 front borders, which I have over here. You just want to place your 2 front borders along the front edge. And then you want to go ahead and grab your bottom border. And then with your bottom border, you just once again want to place this bottom border all the way along the edge of your work, just like this. And then you want to whip stitch everything together, making sure that the wrong side of your work is facing you. So you just want to go all the way around here, all the way around until you reach the opposite corner, then just cut and fasten off. And then once you have your bottom border attached, the last thing that you want to do is take both of your 2 front borders. Well, this isn't the last thing because we still have the collars to do, but just take 2 of your front borders, place them along the edges, and then once again whip stitch all the way down until the end of your work. Do that for both sides, of course. And then the very last thing you want to grab are your 2 cuffs, and then with your 2 cuffs you just want to put them around like this, place them on the end of your sleeves, and then whip stitch all the way around. Then you want to do that, of course, on both sides. So just take your other your other cuff, put it into a circle, and then just whip stitch all the way around. You do have to, scrunch it up just a little bit because the cuff is going to be a bit smaller than your sleeve. And so I'm just going to go off camera, work up both of my cuffs, my 2 front panels, my collar, and then my bottom border, and then I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done with my sweater. But I'm just going to go ahead and work up my 2 collars, my bottom border, my 2 front borders, and my collar. And then I'm going to see you guys back once I am all done with my sweater. Okay guys, so I have now made back here with everything all assembled to my bodice. Over here I have attached my collar, then I have my 2 front borders coming all the way down until the end. Then I also have my bottom border all the way around my bodice. Then the last things that I did was just attach my 2 sleeves, just like this, as well as the cuffs. And I did that on the other side as well. I have my second sleeve with my cuff. So this is basically the end of our project. The last thing you would need to do is just weave in all of your loose ends to finish. So that is basically the end of this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I hope to see you guys back next time. Bye! If you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. If you bought this pattern, it would be super helpful if you left a positive review. But that is all guys, bye!